Hello future RNs, this is Sir Josh, and for this video, pag-uusapan natin is all about your DM, okay? And for you to be able to understand, okay, how your insulin works, kailangan muna nating alamin yung mismong disease process, okay, which is your DM, okay? So pag-uusapan natin first is about your DM. Pag sinabi nating DM yan, nurses, okay, this is a group of metabolic diseases that is characterized by increased level of your glucose in your blood. Okay? But before that, bago tayo kasi magkaroon ng DM, marami kasi tayong mga factors, okay, that could contribute or that could increase your chance to develop your DM. But before that one, kailangan nating alamin that there are types, okay, that there are several types of your DM. In your maternal, meron tayong tinatawag na, meron tayong tinatawag na gestational diabetes mellitus. Okay, that is usually because of the increase, okay, in your HPL na tinatawag natin. That's why pwedeng magkaroon ang mga buntis na tinatawag na GDM. Okay, aside from that one, the other several types of your DM, na alam din ninyo, we have your DM type 1 and your DM type 2 natin. Okay, which will be the focus of our discussion. Sabi natin, there are a lot of factors that could contribute to the development of your DM. Like for example, pagdating sa mga predisposing factors or yung mga tinatawag natin na non-modifiable factors. Okay, nandyan lahat yan. Nandyan yung mismong hereditary factor wherein pwede pong mamana, okay, ng isang tao as long that your DM, okay, runs in your family, pwedeng mamana yan generation by generation. And aside from that one, okay, pagdating naman sa mga precipitating factors natin or yung mga modifiable factors natin, we have number 1 is your sedentary lifestyle natin, wherein that lifestyle, okay, contributes to the to the development of your DM because of your what? High consumption of your sugar. Okay, so ngayon, yung ating focus dito is yung mismong disease process ng DM. So number 1 here, nagkakaroon ka ng DM, it's because number 1, nagkaroon ka ng impaired insulin secretion. And on the other hand, nagkaroon ka ng insulin resistance na tinatawag natin. Okay, wherein through this, dito natin malalaman or dito natin marirealize kung anong klase ng DM meron ng isang pasyente. Pag sinabi natin impaired ang kanyang insulin secretion, we are pertaining to your type 1 DM. Okay, ito yung mismong tinatawag natin type 1 diabetes mellitus. Wherein, ang problem here is that meron kang problem with the secretion or with the production of your insulin. Okay, next naman here, we have your insulin resistance, which is definitely your, tinatawag natin na type 2 DM. Okay, sufficient yung mismong production ng ating insulin, but there is a problem when it comes to the utilization of your insulin doon sa mismong mga glucose in our body. Okay, wherein, pag nagkaroon po tayo ng impaired insulin secretion, same true with your insulin resistance, that will lead to what? That will lead to intracellular reactions wherein they are being diminished. So ngayon, pag nagkaroon tayo ng problem dito, makikita natin dito pag nagkaroon ng problem, yung mismong intracellular reactions natin, okay, malalaman natin that your insulin is already less effective. Okay, ano bang gamit ng insulin natin? Yung insulin natin, usually, ang ginagawa niya is tawag dito, it stimulates yung mismong glucose uptake na tinatawag natin para sa ganun magamit po siya ng ating mga cells. So pag nagkaroon tayo ng problem dyan, that will lead to what? That will lead to possible cell starvation. Kasi yung mismong glucose natin, hindi na siya nakakapas. I mean, yung mismong insulin natin, okay, through the help of your insulin, nakakapasok po kasi yung mismong glucose natin inside your cell para magamit niya po ito. But the problem here, pag meron tayong impaired insulin secretion, kulang ka ng insulin. Kapag meron kang insulin resistance, hindi kayang pumasok ng mismong insulin mo dun sa loob ng ating, hindi kayang pumasok ng mismong glucose natin dun sa loob ng cell natin. That's the time na pwede ka magkaroon ng problem. Okay, number 1 here, of course, kapag walang glucose dun sa loob ng cell, pwede ka magkaroon ng tinatawag na cell starvation. And pag nagkaroon ka ng cell starvation, pwedeng mag-increase ang what? Meron tayong tinatawag na increase in the secretion of your glucagon. Sino po bang nagse-secrete ng glucagon natin? Of course, we have your liver na tinatawag natin. Okay, we have your liver. Wherein, pag nagkaroon kasi tayo ng cell starvation, kulang ka ng glucose. Okay, gutom na gutom yung cells natin ng glucose. there will be an increased secretion of your glucagon. Okay, to stimulate your what? The release of your stored glucose. Okay, gagamitin po ng ating katawan yung mismong naka-stored na glucose wherein dapat hindi. Okay? Through the process of your what? Nagkakaroon ng breakdown of your what? Breakdown of your glycogen na tinatawag natin. Or, yung glycogen kasi natin, that is just the stored form ng ating mga glucose. Okay? That's why pag nagkaroon ka ng breakdown of your glycogen, yan yung tinatawag natin na process na glycogenolysis. Okay, dahil gutom na gutom si cell, of course, gagawa ng paraan yan para sa ganun, para sa ganun ma-compensate niya yung mismong gutom ng ating mga cells from your sugar. Okay, so ang gagawin niya, it will going to increase yung secretion ng ating glucagon, okay, para ma-stimulate yung mismong liver natin through what? Through what process? Through your glycogenolysis or the breakdown of your glycogen. Pag nagkaroon na yung glycogenolysis, what happens is that possible, yung mismong stored glucose natin, hindi naman from time to time kayang i-supply. Okay, kayang supplyan or kayang gamitin ng ating katawan or kayang ibigay lahat or i-provide lahat yung mismong demand ng ating katawan to your sugar, lahat ng ating mga stored glucose. So in the long run, kapag naubusan po tayo ng glucose or yung mga stored glucose natin, yung mismong liver natin, gagawa yan ng paraan. By how, sir? Your liver will form your glucose form breakdown of your non-carbohydrate substances. Ano yung mga yun, sir? Gagamitin niya ngayon ang mga tinatawag natin na amino acids natin. Same true with your stored fats. Para ma-compensate yung kakulangan ng katawan natin with your glucose. So, hindi na po mismong glucose, hindi na po mismong carbohydrates ang gagamitin natin, but yung mismong liver natin, to compensate yung kulang na glucose natin, it will use your amino acids, same true with your tinatawag natin na mga stored fats natin. And if that happens, okay, if that glucose, okay, yung mismong production ng glucose natin hindi enough for your normal metabolic needs, anong mangyayari? Yung mismong katawan natin, okay, your brain will interpret for what? Since kulang ka ng glucose, anong gagawin ng katawan mo? Okay, anong gagawin ng brain mo? Your brain will interpret that there is still a need for food. Kaya kapag meron kang DM, one of the manifestation as part of your 4 P's na tinatawag, meron kang polyphagia or polyphagia. Ibig sabihin, palagi kang nagugutom, kain ka ng kain. Because that is a sign that your brain is telling you that kulang ka ng glucose. Okay, to compensate with the mismong kakulangan ng glucose na pwedeng gamitin ng ating mga cells. Next, ano mangyayari? Of course, yung mismong, remember, tawag dito, yung mismong mga glucose natin, they are needed. Okay, they are needed. Okay, or they are essential para magkaroon tayo ng tinatawag na cellular metabolism or para magkaroon tayo ng synthesis of your energy, which is your ATP. Siyempre, pag kulang ka ng glucose, malamang yung mismong ATP natin or yung mismong energy na kakailanganin ng ating cell for your cellular metabolism, magdi-decrease din po siya. Okay, magdi-decrease po ang production ng ating adenosine triphosphate. And with that, in that case, or in that manner, pag nag-decrease ang energy or nag-decrease yung mismong kailangan natin for your cellular metabolism, malamang magdi-decrease din po yung mismong energy natin. That's why, kapag ikaw, meron kang DM, kung hindi ka kain ng kain, another manifestation will be your what? Decrease in your energy or nagkakaroon ka ng panghihina. Next naman tayo here, okay, on the other hand, okay, we have here your compensatory mechanism natin. So ngayon, okay, as part of its compensatory mechanism, mag-i-increase po yung mismong amount ng insulin natin na kailangan nating ma-produce para ma-maintain natin yung mismong glucose level at normal or even a slightly elevated level. Kasi sabi natin kanina, pag DM yan, hindi na po natin nakokontrol yung mismong level ng ating glucose in your blood. Nagkakaroon ka ng tinatawag na hyperglycemia. And if that's the case, pag na-detect yan ng katawan mo, gagawa yan ng paraan. Okay, that's why it will going to compensate para sa ganun, ma-increase natin yung mismong amount ng insulin, okay, that must be secreted para ma-maintain natin yung mismong glucose level natin, para ma-normalize natin yung glucose level natin, or kahit papaano, maibalik natin sa medyo mas mapababa natin yung mismong glucose level natin in our blood. Okay, that's why pwede kang magkaroon ng tinatawag na metabolic syndrome in the long run. Anong mangyayari kay patient pag nag-compensate yung katawan natin? Pwede kang magkaroon ng hypertension. Okay, tataas ang yung BP. Pwede kang magkaroon ng hypercholesterolemia. Tataas yung mismong cholesterol or yung mismong fat or lipid level sa inyong katawan. And aside from that one, pwede kang magkaroon ng abdominal obesity, which is very common sa mga patient na merong DM. Malaki po yung kanilang mga tiyan. And then sa extremities, medyo maliliit ang kanilang extremities, hindi po siya pantay. Okay? And aside from that one, okay, as you're over time, no, di ba sabi natin yung nagproproduce ng ating beta cells ng ating insulin are your beta cells in your islets of Langerhans sa pancreas natin. So over time, the more na nagko-compensate yung katawan natin para ma-normalize or para maibaba natin yung mismong level ng sugar natin, in the long run, mapapagod po yung mismong mga beta cells natin na nagproproduce ng ating insulin. Okay? They cannot keep up already with the increased demand of your insulin. Kasi in the first place, katawan din natin yan. Napapagod din po yung mga yan para mag-produce ng ating mga insulin. And kapag hindi na po nakapag-produce ng enough or sufficient amount of your insulin, tataas ba ang blood glucose level natin? Yes. Your glucose level rises and builds up in your blood, or yun yung tinatawag natin na hyperglycemia. Okay, yun yung tinatawag natin na hyperglycemia. Nagkakaroon ng hyperglycemia yung mismong patient natin. Ngayon, pag nagkaroon ka ng hyperglycemia, sugar yan. Ano kaya ang magiging effect niyan doon sa mismong blood ng pasyente natin? Malamang yung mismong blood natin, mag-i-increase ang kanyang what? Mag-i-increase ang kanyang blood concentration. And pag nag-increase ang blood concentration natin, lalapot ba ang dugo natin? Malamang magkakaroon ng increase in the viscosity of your blood, or yun yung tinatawag natin na hyperviscosity. Lalapot po yung mismong blood natin because of the presence of too much sugar in your blood. Okay? And if that happens, automatically, pag nagkaroon ng hyperviscosity, lalapot yung blood natin. Ano kayang mangyayari sa blood flow natin? Babagal ba ang blood flow natin? Definitely yes. Nagkakaroon ng sluggish blood flow. Babagal yung mismong blood flow natin. And pag bumagal ang blood flow natin, remember your blood, that contains or it carries your oxygen, it carries your nutrients that are needed for your cellular metabolism. Magdi-decrease din ba ang level of oxygen natin? Definitely yes. That's why pwedeng magkaroon ng damage to your macro and microvascular circulation if there is a sluggish or masyadong mabagal na blood flow because of your hyperviscosity or masyadong lumapot yung mismong dugo natin. And if that happens, okay, ano kayang next na mangyayari? Okay, pag nagkaroon ng damage doon sa mismong micro and macrovascular circulation natin, hindi na enough yung mismong blood supply natin, what will happen? Pwedeng magkaroon ng injury doon sa mismong blood vessel wall natin. And pag nagkaroon ng blood vessel wall injury, automatically, your body will attempt to repair yung mismong na-detect niya na damage yun sa mismong blood vessel wall natin. And if that happens, what will happen next? Nagkakaroon ka ng inflammatory process activation. Or na-activate natin yung mismong inflammatory process natin. Because of your body, okay, tinatry niya na i-compensate, tinatry niya na i-repair yung mismong injury doon sa ating mga blood vessel wall natin. And pag yan ang nangyari, na-activate natin ang ating inflammatory process, of course, what will happen? There will be a vascular changes. Okay, magkakaroon ng pagbabago dun sa mismong mga blood vessels natin. And pag yan ang nangyari, okay, it will increase your blood flow. Sabi kasi natin kanina, because of the hyperviscosity, nag-sluggish or nag-slow down yung mismong blood flow natin. And if there is an increase in your blood flow, definitely, there will be also an increase in your capillary permeability. Sir, ano po bang ibig sabihin ng permeability? That is the ability of your molecules, okay, to enter and exit or diffuse easily, okay, in and out of your cell. Yan ang ibig sabihin ng permeability natin. And if that happens, pag nag-increase ang capillary permeability ng ating pasyente na merong DM, definitely, there will be a leakage of your plasma and protein components to your injured tissue. Okay? And kapag nagkaroon ng leakage ng ating plasma, nakalabas po yung mismong plasma natin and your proteins natin, instead na nasa dapat loob lang siya ng cell, pag nakalabas po yan, pumunta sila dun sa mismong injured site natin, nagkakaroon ng tinatawag na release of your biochemicals or yung mga tinatawag natin na chemical mediators as one of the effect of your activation of your inflammatory process. Nagkakaroon po tayo ng release ng ating mga chemical mediators. And these chemical mediators, okay, anong mangyayari? It will cause further damage to your vascular tissues. Okay, mas nasisira po yung mismong vascular tissues or yung mismong injury or yung mismong site ng ating injured tissue. And pag nagkaroon ng damage, depende yan kung saan. First, dun sa mismong mata ng pasyente. Nagkaroon ng damage yun sa mismong vascular tissue dun sa mata ng pasyente, magkakaroon ka ng tinatawag na retinopathy. And with that, pag nagkaroon ka ng retinopathy, nasisira po yung mismong capillaries natin doon sa mismong eyes natin. That will lead to what? That will lead to possible opacity or cloudy. Okay? Cloudy or blurring of your vision. That's why kapag meron kang DM, one of its complication, pwede ka magkaroon ng tinatawag na cataract. Pwede ka magkaroon ng cataract dahil nga in the first place, nasira po yung mismong mga capillaries natin dun sa ating eyes. So, pwede ka magkaroon ng cataract or damage dun sa mismong pasyente natin or dun sa mismong mata ng pasyente natin na merong DM. Okay? Kaya nagkakaroon ka ng tinatawag na cataract. Next, kapag naman yung mismong vascular tissue natin, okay, ay dun sa mismong vascular tissue ng ating kidneys, okay, pwede kang magkaroon ng what? Pwede kang magkaroon ng tinatawag na nephropathy. And pag nagkaroon ka ng nephropathy, what will happen? It will increase, okay, yung mismong stress dun sa tinatawag natin na glomerular filtration. Okay, wherein yung glomerular filtration natin that aids with the tawag dito, filtration of yung mismong blood component natin para masegregate po natin yung mismong toxic from those substances that needs to be reabsorbed pabalik sa katawan natin. So, pag yan ang nangyari, okay, what will happen? Pwedeng magkaroon ng prolonged inflammatory response. For example, hindi natin na-control yung mismong blood sugar ng pasyente natin, tumaas siya ng tumaas, and in the long run, okay, magkakaroon tayo ng tinatawag na prolonged inflammatory response. And if that happens, ito ang susunod na mangyayari. There will be a scarring and loss of your glomerular filtration membrane. Mas mahihirapan yung kidney natin mag-filter ng mga substances to segregate your mga component na kailangang ibalik sa katawan and mga toxic substances na kailangang i-excrete ng ating katawan. Aside from that one, pwede ka magkaroon ng damage in your capillary membrane. Again, okay, dito na muna tayo sa ating scarring and loss of your glomerular filtration membrane. So, pag ito ang nangyari, what will happen? There will be a decrease in your glomerular filtration rate or yung tinatawag natin na GFR natin. And in your GFR, pag nag-decrease po yung mismong amount ng ating GFR na tinatawag natin, mas mahihirapan po or magdi-decrease din po yung mismong ability ng kidney natin para tanggalin lahat ng mga metabolic wastes natin. Okay, yung sinasabi ko kanina ng mga toxic substances na kailangang i-release or na kailangang i-excrete ng ating katawan through the help of your GFR in your kidney. And if that happens, okay, hindi na nakakayanan ng ating katawan. Okay, hindi na nakakayanan ng ating kidney i-remove lahat ng mga metabolic waste ng ating katawan. That will further damage your kidney and other parts of your body. That's why merong correlation na kapag meron kang DM, hindi lang mismong simpleng DM yan. It can damage other organs or it can even damage or potentially damage, okay, irreversibly damage yung mga iba't ibang parts, particularly yung mga vital organs natin like your kidney. Okay? So, pag yan ang nangyari, hindi na kayang i-filter out ng ating kidney yung mismong mga metabolic wastes in our body, magkakaroon ng build-up of your body wastes in your body that will lead to damage in your kidney and other parts of your body. Next naman tayo here ngayon. Okay? Pag nagkaroon tayo ng scarring and loss of your GF membrane, what will happen? There will be a decrease in the ability to release your erythropoietin. Remember yung mismong erythropoietin natin, this is your hormone. Okay, that are being produced. Okay, that is being produced by your kidney. And anong ginagawa ng ating erythropoietin? It stimulates your bone marrow natin. It stimulates your bone marrow to what? To produce your blood cells natin. Okay, tandaan nyo lang pag makarinig kayo ng erythropoietin, this is a hormone, okay, that are being released or that is being released by your kidney. Para sa ganun, it will going to stimulate your bone marrow, okay, because your bone marrow, that is the major site or the primary site of your hematopoiesis, para makapag-release or makapag-produce po tayo ng blood cells natin, your RBC, your platelet, and your WBC. And if there is a decreased ability to release your erythropoietin, sa tingin natin, mag-i-stimulate pa ba natin yung mismong bone marrow natin to produce your red blood cells natin? Definitely hindi. And remember, pag kulang ka ng RBC, kulang ka ng hemoglobin, magkakaroon ka ng anemia. Okay? So that will happen kapag nagkaroon tayo ng prolonged inflammatory response, pag nagkaroon ng scarring and loss of your glomerular filtration membrane. Next naman tayo dito sa kabila. Sabi natin kanina, there will be a damage in your what? There will be a damage in your capillary membrane natin. So ngayon dito naman, okay, remember yung mismong capillary membrane, kasi yung capillaries natin, okay, dyan nangyayari kasi yung tinatawag natin na diffusion. Mabilis lang pong makapasok at makalabas whatever molecule or whatever substances ang meron siya. Okay, kasi nga, because of its wall, okay, capillary membrane wall natin, maninipis lang po talaga sila. And it will not require, okay, ng carrier, okay, ng transport carrier natin para makapag-move tayo ng one molecule or one substance in and out of your cell. Ngayon, pag nasira po yung mismong capillary membrane natin, what will happen? Nagkakaroon ng leakage of your plasma protein in your urine. Okay, nagkakaroon ng leakage of your plasma protein in your urine. And remember, yung mismong protein natin, tumutulong po yan para ma-maintain natin yung mismong water in our cells. And pag yan ang nangyari, okay, nag-leak po yung mga proteins natin sa mismong ihi or nakalabas po sila sa ating katawan, there will be a decrease in the amount or nagkakaroon ng loss of your protein. And pag bumaba po yung mismong protein level natin, a good example of your protein, meron tayong tinatawag na albumin. And pag yan ang nangyari, yung mismong albumin natin, babagsak din po siya. Bababa po, kaya nagkakaroon ng tinatawag na hypoalbuminemia. And remember, your albumin, anong ginagawa niya? It's responsible for your oncotic pressure. Ano ba si oncotic pressure? That's the pressure we're in. Okay? Hinihila po natin yung mismong tubig natin towards your cell. Yun po ang ginagawa ng ating albumin. Okay? Hinihila po natin yung mismong tubig natin pabalik sa loob ng cells natin. And if there is a hypoalbuminemia, nagdi-decrease ang ating oncotic pressure. That's why, yung mismong tubig sa loob ng cell dapat nakakalabas na po sila sa interstitial space natin. Naintindihan natin? Nakakalabas na po. Instead na dapat yung tubig nag-stay lang sa loob ng cell. Okay, instead, or rather, ang nangyayari, nagkakaroon ng fluid shifting na tinatawag dahil nag-decrease mo ang ating oncotic pressure because of the decrease in the level of your albumin. That's why na mangyayari, nakakalabas yung tubig galing sa loob ng cell, lalabas yan dating interstitial space. What will happen? Pwede ka magkaroon ng tinatawag na edema. Kaya namamanas ka. Okay? Next naman tayo here is that pag nagkaroon ng hypoalbuminemia, okay, remember that there will be a stimulation of the synthesis of your lipoproteins. And pag nagkaroon ng synthesis of your lipoprotein, definitely mas madami tayong maproproduce na mga fats in our body. That's why what will happen, mag-i-increase po ang fat or lipid level in your body, kaya nagkakaroon ka ng hyperlipidemia. Okay, so ganun pang nangyayari sa ating DM. Next naman tayo here, dito sa ating neuropathy. Pag sinabi nating neuropathy yan, nurses, ibig sabihin neuropathy dun sa ating mga nerves. Okay? So ngayon, pag nagkaroon ng damage in your vascular tissues in the long run, pwedeng magkaroon ng what? Pwedeng magkaroon ng neuropathy yung pasyente natin, wherein pag nagkaroon siya ng neuropathy, problems dun sa mismong kanyang mga nerves, there will be a decrease in your sensory. That's why, particular din sa mga peripheral areas ng ating katawan, that's why makikita natin sa mga pasyente mayroong DM, there will be a numbness and tingling sensation. Okay, namamanhid po sila. That's why kapag nasugat sila, hindi nila namamalayan na nagkakaroon pala sila ng sagot, particularly sa kanilang peripheral parts of their body, like sa mismong paa nila or sa mismong kamay nila. It's because of your damage yun sa kanilang vascular tissues. Next naman tayo here dito. Okay, pag nagkaroon ka ng damage dun sa mismong macro and microvascular circulation natin, malamang, remember, sabi natin, ano ba ang kinikerry ng ating tinatawag na blood natin. Okay? Doon sa mismong circulation na nandyan yung mismong nutrients, nandyan primarily yung mismong oxygen natin. And if there is a decrease in your oxygen, what will happen? Nagkakaroon ng decrease in your tissue perfusion. Okay? Next naman tayo here, if there is a hyperviscosity, lumapot yung mismong dugo ng pasyente na merong DM, anong mangyayari? There will be an increase in your extracellular osmolarity. Okay, wherein, pag nagkaroon ng increase in your extracellular osmolarity, extracellular sa labas ng cell natin, what will happen? Nagkakaroon ng tinatawag na osmotic diuresis. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng diuresis natin? Okay? Ibig sabihin nun, nahihila po natin lahat ng ating tubig galing kay cell na ilalabas po natin siya. That's when nagkakaroon ka ng diuresis. Ano mangyayari sa kanya? Ihi siya ng ihi. Okay, nagkakaroon siya ng tinatawag na polyuria. And aside from that one, of course, for your body to compensate, okay, oh my God, ang dami-daming tubig ang nailalabas ko. Anong gagawin ng katawan natin? Of course, it will going to stimulate yung mismong thirst natin para ikaw, uhaw ka na uhaw. Okay? Nang sa ganun, inom ka ng inom ng tubig para makompensate natin yung mismong nawalang tubig because of your osmotic diuresis. Kaya si patient na merong DM, nagkakaroon siya ng polytipsia. Insatiable thirst. Uhaw na uhaw ang pasyente na merong DM. Naintindihan natin? That is just the disease process of your diabetes mellitus. Next na tayo ngayon here with your first tawag dito, anti-diabetic agent natin, we have your insulin. Okay, so ngayon si insulin, sabi natin normally, that is being released by your what? Okay, that is being released by your beta cells. Saan? Dun sa mismong islets of Langerhans ng ating pancreas. Okay, si pancreas po, specifically its beta cells, dun sa mismong islets of Langerhans natin, dyan po na-produce yung tinatawag natin na insulin natin. Okay? Wherein in here, mapapansin natin dito, okay, nagkakaroon ng what? Nagkakaroon ng increase. If there is an increase in your blood pressure, I should say. Okay? If there is an increase in your blood pressure, what will happen? Okay? Malamang yung mismong insulin natin or yung mismong pancreas natin, it will going to release your insulin. Okay? In response, with the increase in your blood glucose, ang gagawin ng ating katawan, it will going to stimulate your mismong pancreas, specifically its beta cells in your islets of Langerhans. Magproproduce po yan ng tinatawag natin na insulin. Okay, ngayon, ang ginagawa kasi ni insulin normally, it promotes what? Sinabi natin kanina na to, the uptake of your glucose, not only your glucose, but also with your amino acids and your fatty acids. Para sa ganon, ang mangyayari dyan, okay, nagkakaroon ng uptake or tinutulungan natin yung mismong glucose natin para makapasok doon sa loob ng ating cells. That way, they are being stored in your body cells. Anong gagawin ng katawan natin, since nasa loob na po sila ng cell, okay, it will going to what? It will going to convert yung mismong glucose natin into your stored form or yung tinatawag natin na glycogen. Saan? Okay, doon sa mismong, in our liver. Okay, what else? And in your muscles natin. Para sa ganon, pag nangailangan ulit, yung mismong katawan natin ng glucose, meron po tayong na-store or meron po tayong naitabi na glucose which is already converted into what? Glycogen for future glucose needs. So ngayon, pag yan ang nangyari, since wala ng glucose dun sa mismong circulation, dun sa mismong blood natin, anong mangyayari? Malamang nagdi-decrease na din po yung mismong blood glucose level natin dahil naipasok na natin yung mismong glucose sa loob ng cells natin through the help of what? Through the help of your insulin. Okay? Ngayon, dito tayo sa ating normal blood glucose level. Kailangan nating malaman. So ngayon, meron tayong FBS. Okay? Or yung tinatawag natin na fasting blood sugar or fasting blood glucose natin. Wherein, kailangan mo munang mag-fasting ng ilang oras, at least 8 to 10 hours. Yun ang sinasabi ng ibang books. Okay? At least 8 to 10 hours dapat nakakapag-fasting ka, wala kang kinain, wala kang ininom. Okay? That's why, ang normal dapat na glucose level natin, pag ikaw ay nag-undergo ng fasting blood glucose, it should be what? It should be 70 to 99 milligram per DL. That is your normal level for your fasting blood glucose. And if it remains elevated more than 200. Kahit nag-fasting ka na, wala ka namang kinain, nag-fasting ka na, pero more than 200 mg per DL, suspected, pwedeng meron kang diabetes mellitus. But, hindi mo na final diagnosis na meron kang DM. Okay, ngayon, aside from your FBG, ang importante, meron tayong tinatawag na hemoglobin A1C or your HbA1c. Wherein, ang ating HbA1c, this is just what? Ito yung tinatawag natin na, okay, derivative po siya. Okay, your HbA1c, this is just a derivative of what? The interaction ng ating glucose with your hemoglobin in your RBC. Okay, this is a derivative wherein dito natin makikita yung mismong interaction ng ating glucose with your hemoglobin dun sa ating RBC. And this is your ultimate way para ma-determine natin if you have diabetes mellitus. Okay, ginagamit natin to as your diagnostic test for DM. Okay, why? It's because remember, yung RBC natin nurses, okay, ilan ba ang lifespan or the average lifespan ng ating RBC? Ilang days? 120 days. Okay, this is the average lifespan ng ating RBC bago sila tuluyang masira. Ngayon, papansin natin, with its lifespan ng ating RBC, which is 120 days, dito natin makikita yung mismong average glucose level for ilang months. Ilang months ba ang 120 days? For up to 3 months. Kasi sabi natin ang ating HbA1c, that is just the interaction ng mismong glucose natin with your hemoglobin in your RBC. So ngayon, since ang ating RBC, 120 days ang kanyang lifespan, okay, dito natin ma-determine kung ano yung mismong average glucose level natin for ilang months, for at least 3 months. Kung consistent siya, or pag nag-persist siya na mataas yan, ibig sabihin meron kang DM. So percentage naman po ang ating basis here. 5%, okay, pag 5% yung mismong HbA1c natin, ibig sabihin nun, possible, wala kang DM. Kasi this is just normal. Okay? 5% or less than 5%. But, kapag ang ating HbA1c is 5.7% to 6.4%, ibig sabihin nun, meron kang pre-diabetes. Or there is a precursor, or there is a chance na pwede kang magkaroon ng diabetes mellitus. And, if yung mismong HbA1c mo 6.5%, ibig sabihin, you are a candidate for diabetes mellitus. Okay, so yan po yung importance ng tinatawag natin na insulin in our body. So ngayon, dito tayo sa ating mga commercially prepared insulin natin. But before that one, kailangan nating tandaan, yung mismong insulin natin, tumataas po ang level ng insulin. Okay, nakadepende po yan kay patient if siya ay obese. What else? Kapag siya ay stress. Kasi pag stress tayo, there's tawag dito, a release or there is an increase in your natural steroids sa tinatawag at or your corticosteroids or yung mga stress hormones natin. Okay? So, that will lead to increase in your blood sugar. So, kailangan din mag-compensate ng ating pancreas to release more of your insulin. Okay? Kailan tumataas ang insulin natin? Pag ang pasyente natin obese, ang ating stress or stress ang pasyente natin, or if there is a tissue insulin resistance. That is commonly seen sa mga pasyente natin na merong type 2 diabetes mellitus. Okay? So, ngayon dito tayo sa ating mga commercially prepared insulin natin. So, dalawa lang yan. We have your extraction usually earlier. Okay? Nung una, talagang ginagamit natin is mga insulin that came from your animals. Like your pigs and your cattle. And aside from that one, since makabago na tayo ngayon, with your technology, evolving technology, nakapag-formulate po tayo ng mga biosynthetic form of your insulin. Okay, so ngayon dito tayo sa ating extraction, okay, from your animals ng mga insulin. Mga insulin that are extracted primarily from your animals like your pigs and your cattle. Bakit pigs ang ginagamit natin, sir? It's because yung mga pigs natin or mga baboy natin, okay, structurally, they are somewhat closer dun sa mismong human insulin na naproproduce ng ating pancreas. Halos pareho sila ng structure. But, tanda natin, since makaluma yan noon, siya ginagamit now, as of now, they are already rarely used or they are being rarely used because yung mismong mga extraction na from mga insulin na galing sa animals, they can cause severe allergic reaction yung mga yan. Okay, nagkakause sila ng severe allergic reaction or nagkakause sila ng hypersensitivity. That's why hindi na po sila masyadong ginagamit. Through our technology, okay, meron na tayong mga biosynthetic na mga insulin, wherein sa biosynthetic, anong ginagamit natin? Gumagamit pa tayo ng ating recombinant DNA technology natin. Wherein, okay, yung mismong biosynthetic na yan, they duplicates what? Diniduplicate pa nila yung mismong insulin na pinaproduce po ng ating pancreas. And compared kay animal, insulin, okay, we have lower chances or lower incidence of both allergic effects and insulin resistance kapag gumamit tayo ng biosynthetic insulin. Next naman tayo here, meron tayong iba't ibang types ng ating insulin. What are those? Okay, number 1, we have your rapid-acting insulin, we have your short-acting insulin, your intermediate-acting, and then lastly, meron tayong tinatawag na long-acting insulin. Proceed tayo kay rapid-acting. Ano may example ng rapid-acting natin? Papasok dyan si Lispro, insulin Lispro. What else? Human insulin aspart, your insulin glulicin, and your oral inhalation insulin. So, yan po yung mga rapid-acting insulin. Ibig sabihin, pag rapid-acting, mabilis po ang kanyang onset. Mabilis po silang mag-take effect. Next naman tayo, we have your short-acting. Okay, we have your regular insulin. Your intermediate, we have your NPH or yung tinatawag natin na neutral protamine hagedorn. And then lastly, your long-acting type of your insulin, meron tayong tinatawag na insulin glargine. Okay, so ang importante dito, since na-discuss natin sa mismong pharmacodynamics natin sa prelims, yung ibig sabihin ng ating onset, ng ating peak, and our duration. Okay, dito tayo sa ating onset, peak, and duration natin. So sa onset, ibig sabihin ng onset, okay, yung po yung mismong time, di ba? Minimum time natin, okay, para yung mismong isang gamot, magkakaroon siya ng effect sa ating katawan. So ngayon, depende kung anong type ng insulin yan, okay, depende sa mismo, magkakaiba kasi sila ng onset kung gaano sila kabilis mag-take effect. And pag once na nag-take effect yan, automatically bababa ang glucose natin. Kasi yun ang ginagawa ng ating insulin, pinapababa niya ang level ng ating glucose in your blood. By how? Tumutulong siya sa mismong glucose uptake, pinapasok niya pa yung mismong glucose natin sa loob ng ating mga cells. Next naman tayo with your peak. Di ba pag sinabi natin peak, yan yung mismong highest concentration ng gamot kung saan siya pinakamalakas. Ngayon, kapag nasa peak po ng ang ating insulin, definitely babagsak ang kanyang blood sugar. Kaya nagkakaroon siya ng hypoglycemia. What are the signs and symptoms of your hypoglycemia? Pag si patient na nagtitake ng insulin, nagkaroon siya ng dizziness, nahihilo siya. Nagkaroon siya ng pallor, namutla siya. And cold clammy ang kanyang skin, nanlamig siya. Kaya itong mga signs ng hypoglycemia, di ba? May mga classmate tayo minsan na pag hindi sila kumain, etong kanilang mga manifest na mga signs and symptoms is because sumabagsak po ang kanilang blood sugar. And yun po ang ginagawa ng ating insulin, pinapabagsak niya ang blood sugar ng ating katawan. That's why, anong may iba't ibang signs ng ating hypoglycemia? We have your dizziness, your pallor, and your cold. Kapag si patient nag-hypogly, nakikita natin sa kanya, conscious naman siya, hindi siya nawalan ng malay. Anong gagawin natin? Kaya mapapansin niyo pag may nagko-collapse, anong ginagawa natin as nurses? Bigyan ng candy yan. Because your candy, it is rich in sugar, rich in glucose. That's why, anong gagawin natin? Pag conscious ang pasyente, as long nakaya niyang kumain, kaya niyang uminom, magbibigay tayo ng something sweet or anything na matamis, like your candy. And, kapag si patient, unconscious, nawalan siya ng malay because of your hypoglycemia, anong gagawin natin? Hindi natin yan pwedeng pakainin. It's because of the risk of your aspiration. So, anong gagawin natin? You have to administer your D10 water and D50 water because this type of your solution, they have sugar in it. Okay, next naman tayo sa ating duration. Ibig sabihin yung duration, okay, from the time na nag-take effect siya until such time na mawawala yung mismong effect niya. And pag nawala yung mismong effect, okay, ng ating insulin, whatever type of your insulin, babalik yan sa mismong state of your hyperglycemia. Tumataas again ang kanyang blood sugar. That's why lalabas yung mga iba't ibang symptoms ng ating hyperglycemia. We have your 4 P's. Ano ulit yung 4 na P's? Sabi natin kanina, magugutom ba ang pasyente? Yes, nagkakaroon siya ng polyphagia. What else? Nagkakaroon siya ng polydipsia, insatiable thirst, nauuhaw. Ano pa? Magkakaroon siya ng polyuria. Okay? So those are the signs of your hyperglycemia. Dito ngayon tayo sa iba't ibang types ng ating insulin. Kailangan niyang i-memorize, nurses. Okay, pag sinabi natin insulin lispro, aspart glulicin, and your oral inhalation, insulin, they're under your what? They're under your rapid-acting insulin. Ano ang kanyang onset ng lispro? 1 hour. Diba? I mean, that is the half-life or kung kailan siya excrete sa ating katawan. Focus tayo sa ating onset. Ang onset kasi ng insulin lispro, once na nag-administer ka ng insulin lispro, 15 to 30 minutes, magka-take effect na yan. How about with the peak? Kung kailan siya, tawag dito, kung kailan siya pinakamataas ng kanyang concentration, within 30 to 90 minutes, nag-hypogly ang pasyente natin. That's your peak. Because, sabi natin, pag sinabi natin peak, yung mismong highest concentration ng gamot, which causes your hypoglycemia. So, after 30 to 90 minutes, pwedeng mag-hypogly ang pasyente natin? Yes. And the duration itself, since rapid-acting po siya, 3 to 5 hours po siya nagtatagal. Next, your insulin aspart naman po, in general, halos pare-pareho na po sila yan. Okay? Next naman tayo sa ating mga short-acting insulin. So, insulin regular natin, si regular insulin natin, I should say, ang kanyang half-life is 1.5 half hour lang po siya. Okay? And, remember nurses, lahat ng klase ng insulin natin, they are being best administered subcutaneously or sa mga fats po natin siya in-administer. But, we only have one insulin that can be both administered subcutaneously and intravenously, which is your short-acting insulin like your regular insulin natin. Yun ang tandaan ninyo, nurses. Okay? So ngayon, kapag binigay natin ang ating insulin, ang ating regular insulin, subcutaneously, anong kanyang onset? 30 minutes. Okay? How about with your intravenously? Malamang intravenously yan, mas mabilis, 15 minutes. Okay? How about its peak? Okay? Ang subcutaneous regular insulin, 2.5 to 5 hours. Ang ating intravenously, 15 to 30 minutes. How about ang kanyang duration? 4 to 12 hours lang po. Kapag subcutaneously, kapag IV naman po is 30 to 60 minutes. Next naman tayo with your intermediate acting insulin. Sabi natin we have your NPH. Anong ibig sabihin ng NPH? That's your neutral protamine hagedorn. Okay, so sa insulin isofine NPH natin, ano ang kanyang half-life? 5 to 6 minutes lang po. And, ang kanyang onset, mas mabagal po siya. 1 to 2 hours bago po siya mag-take effect. Ano ang kanyang peak? 4 to 12 hours. Ang kanyang duration, 14 to 24 hours. Next naman tayo kay long-acting insulin. From the word says long-acting. Okay, matagal po ba ang kanyang duration? Malamang. Okay, it's because of its long duration. Ang kanyang half-life, 5 to 6 minutes. Ang kanyang onset, bago siya mag-take effect, 1 to 1.5 hours. Ang kanyang peak, wala. Okay, yan ang kanyang duration. Mas matagal compared sa other type of your insulin is 24 hours po siya nagtatagal. Let's proceed now with your tinatawag natin na mga pharmacodynamics. Paano po ba nag-work? Or kung ano yung action ng ating insulin dun sa ating katawan. So remember, sabi natin kanina, normally, okay, ang ating tinatawag na insulin, they help with what? They help with your, paulit-ulit na sinasabi natin kanina, they help with your glucose uptake. Okay, tumutulong po sila sa ating tinatawag na glucose uptake natin. So ngayon, ang nangyari dito, nurses, tandaan lang ninyo, okay, so makikita natin dito, we have your cells, we have your glucose transport channel, and you have your insulin receptor. So with the help of your insulin, okay, anong ginagawa natin kanina, sabi natin, okay, for normally kasi, yung mismo ng glucose natin, itong mga to, they cannot enter your cell. So with the help of your insulin to your receptor, anong nangyayari? Okay, yung mismong mga insulin natin, they are being produced by your beta cells. Diba? Sabi natin, normally, yung mismong insulin natin, they are being produced by your beta cells. Pag na-stimulate natin si mismong beta cells, nagproduce mo siya ng insulin. Yes, wherein si insulin, anong ginagawa niya? Nag-bind siya saan? Sa ating mismong mga receptors in your target cell. Kung ano mang target cell siya, magbabind. So ngayon, pag nag-bind po ang ating insulin dun sa ating mga target cells, kaya nga meron siyang receptor, di ba? Ang nangyari ngayon is, yung mismong insulin natin and its receptor, first move to on. Makikita natin, nag-move siya inside your cell. Wherein, it will going to activate your what? It will going to activate your, tinatawag natin kanina na, glucose transport channel natin. to move saan? Saan siya pupunta yung mismong glucose, tawag dito, yung mismong glucose transfer channel natin, pumupunta siya saan? Sa mismong ating surface of your cell, sa gilid ng ating cell, or sa labas mismo ng ating cell. Okay? And if that happens, kapag lumabas na po, yung mismong channel natin, or yung mismong glucose transporter channel natin, okay, it will going to allow what? Papasok na po yung mismong mga insulin inside your cell. Wherein yung mismong insulin na yan, okay, or yung mismong cell na yan, yung mismong glucose na yan, they will already use your glucose for cellular metabolism. So normally, that is how your insulin works. Okay? And if that happens, sabi natin kanina, ano ba yung mga function ng ating insulin or action ng ating insulin? It helps with the storage of your glucose as glycogen. Nasabi natin kanina dito, yung mismong glucose natin, okay, yung mismong insulin natin, it promotes what? Conversion. Okay, kino-convert niya po, sabi natin kanina, di ba? Kino-convert niya po yung mismong what? It convert your glucose para maging glycogen siya. Okay, in your storage form na tinatawag, ang ating insulin, kino-convert yung glucose natin into what? Into glycogen for storage. And pag yan ang nangyari, there will be what? There will be an increase in your protein and fat synthesis natin. Okay, wherein, sabi natin kanina, yung mismong insulin natin, in-stimulate yung mismong lipoprotein, lipase activity natin. Sabi natin yan kanina. Wherein, it will going to convert your what? Kino-convert niya po yung mismong mga circulating lipoproteins natin. Okay, circulating lipoproteins natin into what? Into fatty acids. Yun pang ginagawa ng ating mismong insulin. And aside from that one, it stimulates your what? Okay, I mean, it decelerates or pinapabagal yung mismong breakdown ng glycogen, protein, and your fat natin. Wherein, ang ginagawa niya, okay, ng ating insulin, tinitrigger niya po yung mismong amino acid uptake natin. And conversion ng ating what? Sabi natin kanina ng ating protein in your master cells. Okay, para ma-inhibit po natin yung pagkasira ng ating mga proteins. And aside from that what? It stimulates yung mismong triglyceride yung sa mismong fat natin. Okay, it stimulates your triglyceride formation. Okay, na-stimulate po natin yung triglyceride formation para sa ganun, ma-inhibit po natin yung mismong release ng what? Ng ating fatty acids from your what? From your adipose tissue. And lastly, ang ginagawa ng ating insulin, aside from that one, it balances your fluids and your electrolytes. Kasi sabi natin kanina, pag meron kang insulin, nauuhaw ka ba? Yes, nagkakaroon ka ng polydipsia. Ihi ka ba ng ihi? Yes, nagkakaroon ka ng polyuria. And with that, pag nagkaroon tayo ng polyuria, magkaroon tayo ng polydipsia, it can imbalance both your fluid and your electrolytes. Kasi it's being associated with what? Ano sabi natin kanina? Your osmotic diuresis natin. Okay, wherein, ang gagawin ngayon ng ating insulin, it will facilitate your what? Movement ngayon ng ating potassium from your extracellular fluid natin. Okay, wherein, ang gagawin po ng ating insulin, pinapasok po niyang what? Pinapasok po niya ang mismong potassium natin galing kay labas, pinapapasok niya yan papunta sa loob ng tissue. Kasi normally, ano ba yung mismong cell natin, di ba? Tinatawag natin siyang piso. Okay? Potassium inside, sodium outside. So, pag nagkaroon ka kasi ng diuresis or nagkaroon ka ng osmotic diuresis, nakakalabas po yung mismong potassium natin outside your cell. Kaya ang gagawin ng ating insulin, babalik yung mismong protein paloob sa mismong cells kung saan siya nararapat. That's why yung ating mismong tinatawag na insulin, aside from mismong pagpapababa ng ating blood sugar, ginagamit din po natin siya in the case of your hyperkalemia or masyado mataas yung mismong bilang ng potassium serum level natin in your blood. Proceed tayo ngayon with your pharmacokinetics or yung mismong movement ng ating blood, ng ating gamot sa ating katawan. First, orally, okay? Definitely, pag orally ang ating, you cannot administer your mismong insulin natin orally. Why? It's because, nagbigay tayo ng mismong insulin orally, okay, with your oral administration, hindi po siya effective. Tandaan niyo yung nurses. Okay, they are not effective because yung mismong gastrointestinal tract natin, sinisira niya po yung mismong protein molecule ng ating insulin. Therefore, lesser ang kanyang absorption. Next, okay, ideally, sabi natin, halos lahat ng klase ng insulin, they should be administered what? Subcutaneously or sa mismong mga fats, dapat siya in-administer. Because, tandaan natin, kapag subcutaneous yan, sa mismong mga fats tayo magtutusok. But tandaan natin, nurses, nakadepende yan sa mismong injection site, kung saan tayo tutusok ng insulin. What else? Of course, yung mismong patient's blood supply natin. Okay, nakadepende sa mismong distribution ng ating gamot. What else? Yung mismong degree of tissue hypertrophy, kung gaano kalaki or kung gaano kataba. Okay, yung mismong site na tutusukan natin. And then next, we have your intravenous. Ano ulit yung mismong? The only insulin that can be administered intravenously, we have your what? We have your regular insulin. Under your short-acting type of your insulin. Next naman tayo ngayon with your drug interactions, okay? That's why hindi po basta-basta na for example, yung patient natin magbibigay tayo ng insulin, hindi pwedeng basta-basta na, hindi pwedeng basta-basta na nakikipagsabayan tayo or nagsasabay tayo ng mga iba't ibang klase ng medication kasi it's either it can increase yung mismong hypoglycemic effect ng gamot, mas lalong babagsak ang blood sugar ng pasyente natin, or it can decrease your hypoglycemic effect ng ating gamot wherein mas lalo namang tataas yung mismong glucose level ng ating pasyente. Pag sinabay natin siya sa mga gitong klaseng gamot. Dito na muna tayo sa ating increased hypoglycemic effect. Okay, hindi ka pwedeng magbigay ng aspirin together with your insulin dahil mas babagsak ang blood sugar ng pasyente natin. What else? Mga oral anticoagulants or mga gamot na nagpapalab daw ng ating mga dugo. What else? Your alcohol as well. Okay, hindi ka pwedeng mag-take ng alcohol together with your insulin kasi mas magkakaroon ka ng hypoglycemia. What else? Mga beta blockers natin. Ano pa? Your ARBs na tinatawag natin or your angiotensin 2 receptor blockers. Same also with your ACE inhibitor, di ba? Mga pangpababa ng BP. Ano pa? You have your TCA or your tricyclic antidepressants. Same true with your MAWI. Okay, mga antidepressants. And then lastly, we have your antibiotic na tinatawag natin na tetracycline. Wherein, pag binigay po natin itong mga ganitong gamot, plus your insulin, mas babagsak po ang mismong blood sugar ng pasyente because it can increase your hypoglycemic effect. Next, mga gamot naman na pwedeng mag-decrease ng hypoglycemic effect. Okay, hindi tatalab yung mismong gamot natin. Pag hinala natin to with your insulin. Number 1, we have your thiazide. Diba, diuretics po sa thiazide. You cannot give your thiazide diuretics. Same true with your what? Same true with your insulin. Kasi nga, hindi tatalab yung mismong insulin natin. Hindi siya magkakos ng hypoglycemia. Or hindi niya mapapababa ang mismong blood sugar ng pasyente natin. What else? Mga glucocorticoids natin. Ang mga steroids natin. Okay? What else? You have your oral contraceptives. Next, we have your thyroid drugs. Okay? Mga drugs natin that could stimulate or that could inhibit yung mismong action ng ating thyroid gland. Ano pa? We have your furosemide, another type again of your loop diuretics. Your bumetanide, okay, bumetanide, I should say. Next, you have your phenytoin, okay, anticonvulsant. And then lastly, we have your antibiotic na tinatawag natin na fluoroquinolones natin. So, yung mga gamot na to, you cannot give it together with your insulin because it can decrease your hypoglycemic effect. Hindi tatalab yung mismong insulin natin. And then lastly, we have your nursing management. Okay, dito tayo mag-focus because ito usually yung laman ng tinatanong sa mismong exam natin. Okay, number 1, nursing management. You have to administer your insulin at room temperature. Why? Bakit mismong room temperature? Hindi pwedeng sobrang init, sobrang malamig. It's because, okay, we can prevent your tinatawag natin na lipodystrophy. Okay, kaya dapat hindi masyadong mainit, hindi masyadong malamig kapag tayo magbibigay ng ang mismong environment natin or yung mismong room natin if you're going to give your insulin. Because pwede ka siya magkaroon ng lipodystrophy. Ano ba si lipodystrophy? Pag sinabi natin lipodystrophy, nagkakaroon ng atrophy. Okay, nagkakaroon ng atrophy or hypertrophy. Saan? Doon sa mismong subcutaneous tissue kung saan tayo magtutusok ng ating insulin. So, mapapansin natin pag nagkaroon si patient ng lipodystrophy, ano makikita natin sa kanyang taba? Ito ay ninigas. Nagkakaroon ng hard. And pag nagkaroon ng hard or nagkaroon ng lipodystrophy, yung mismong site kung saan tayo magtutusok ng insulin, malamang babagsak ang kanyang absorption. Okay? Or magdi-decrease yung absorption ng insulin. And of course, kapag magtutusok tayo, masyadong masakit yan para kay pasyente pag nanigas ito or yung tinatawag natin lipodystrophy or nagkaroon ng atrophy or hypertrophy yung mismong subcutaneous tissue kung saan tayo magtutusok. What else? Yung mismong insulin natin, they should be refrigerated once open. Okay? So, kailangan nating i-ref yung mismong insulin natin once na inopen na po natin ito. And then next, you have to avoid shaking insulin. Why? Ano din ang gagawin natin? You just have to roll between your palms dapat. Okay? You have to roll between your palms yung mismong insulin, not aggressively shaking it. And then next here, okay, accuracy of your administration is important. Why? It's because it's either pag masyadong madaming mismong dosage natin for your insulin, nagkaroon tayo ng miscalculation or maling mismong computation dun sa dosage ng ating insulin, what will happen to our patient? Pwedeng magkaroon niya ng hypoglycemia or mas magiging severe yung kanyang hypoglycemic effect. Or the other way around, kapag underdose naman, hindi tatalab yung mismong insulin natin. Next naman here, ito very important, you have to rotate your insulin sites to prevent what? Para hindi siya magkaroon again ng lipodystrophy. Okay, ilang inches dapat? Okay, for example, sa left part ng kanyang tiyan ka dapat day by day, hindi isang site lang ang tinutusukan mo. Dapat magbigay ka ng spaces. Okay, dapat lumilipat tayo ng at least ilang inches, 1 inches or 1 inch every time na magpapalit ka or magro-rotate ka ng insulin site natin. For example, ito yung katawan ng pasyente natin. Dito ka nagtusok, next day dito naman. Okay, basta salitan siya. Dapat hindi lang iisa yung mismong site natin kasi magkakaroon ka ng lipodystrophy. Okay, pag walang 1 inch sa exam, hanapin nyo lang si 2.5 cm. Next, you have to use your short bore needle gauge 25 to 26. Dapat konti lang po or maliit lang po yung mismong needle na gagamitin natin para since sinabi natin na subcutaneous dito sa mismong fat lang po tayo tutusok. Okay, hindi sa mismong muscle. And then next, pag nagtusok na tayo, there's no need for you to aspirate compared sa ating mga intramuscular, di ba? Nag-aspirate tayo. And then next here, when it comes to administering your insulin, paano dapat yung mismong pagtusok natin? Ilang degree? 45 to 90 degrees since subcutaneous po siya. Depending dun sa mismong amount ng subcutaneous tissue or mismong taba ng ating patient natin. And then next, you have what is the most accessible route natin? Malamang kakasabi ko lang kanina, you have your abdomen. And then, lastly, okay, pag mga combination na ganun, na insulin, for example, tawag dito, magko-combine tayo ng dalawang insulin, ang pinaka number 1 kasi dyan is yung mismong itsura ng ating mga insulin. Meron tayong mga insulin na clear, meron din tayong mga insulin na cloudy. So, anong gagawin natin? Anong uunahin natin na i-aspirate kapag combination? Unahin mo muna yung mismong clear na klase ng insulin, saka mo isunod si cloudy. Bakit? That is to prevent your what? That is to prevent your contamination. Para hindi po natin makontaminate yung mismong natin. And aside from that one, that's simply to promote what? Accurate calibration. Kung para ma-determine natin kung ilang amount lang po dapat or yan lang dapat yung mismong dosage na kailangan ng pasyente natin. And then lastly, you have to monitor for local complications like what? Kasi sabi natin kanina, si patient, taking insulin, pwede siya magkaroon ng hypersensitivity or pwede siya magkaroon ng allergic reaction. Magkakaroon siya ng lipodystrophy. And then lastly, meron tayong tinatawag na SOMO-G. Okay, ano yung SOMO-G phenomenon na yan? Your SOMO-G phenomenon, once na nag-take si patient ng insulin, pwede siya magkaroon ng rebound effect of that insulin. Okay, rebound effect of your insulin wherein, una-muna, mag-hyperglyce si patient, tataas ang kanyang blood sugar, and then biglang babagsak ang kanyang blood sugar, magkakaroon siya ng hypoglycemia. That is your SOMO-G phenomenon na tinatawag natin. Okay, so that ends our discussion with your insulin.